Hi, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of the Effective Teaching Podcast. Today we have Kelly Pfieffer with us from Dubbo Distance Ed, because today we're going to be talking all about remote learning and distance ed, given the current issues around us with coronavirus. So thank you so much for joining me again, Kelly. You're my first repeat
Oh,
person for my podcast.
I feel very privileged.
So can you just tell us a little bit about your role, maybe to start with, and what you do, and the fact that you do this all
Mhm.
day, every day?
Yes, no, my role at Dubbo Distance Ed is I'm head teacher Futures Learning. So that is, people go, what is that exactly? So I'm a trained PDHPE teacher, but in this role, I've had to work across primary and secondary and just look at different ways of innovating, different learning, hopefully to get more depth from our students. So the best practice we've found for that has been through project-based learning, but we also deliver our day-to-day learning across the curriculum via distance ed, and our teachers at our school are very resourceful, very dynamic, and have a variety of ways in which they do it. And essentially that all comes back to what is the best fit for our learners, but also what they have access to as well. So it's always ever-changing environment.
Yeah. I imagine a lot of teachers listen to this and just going, "What, you do project-based learning via distance?" I mean, most people get project-based learning as a headache anyway, and they think online learning is a headache.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just combining those two to make things as difficult as possible for yourself, by the sounds of it.
Yes, every time we do it. So we've probably been doing it for the last 4 or 5 years now. Our team of teachers, when we come together, go, look, you could not try and do this in a more difficult context if you tried. So just in that middle bit where there's usually a bit of a lull, everyone's going, oh no, will it work? Won't it work? That type of thing. Yeah, I always remind them of that fact, Dan. So you're exactly right there. Very complicated.
Okay, so you do online distance type learning all the time. So can you tell us then, so if we're about to have to do that, or I know everyone is really getting prepped for it. So everyone's been told to prep probably about 2 weeks worth of work at this point. So as they go about this prepping, what do they need to think about?
Um, the things to think about would be, first of all, what do your students have access to in regards to technology? So that would come back to like their data plans, what you have at your school that you can access, what your principals and directors will support in terms of that. Once you have that sorted, whatever platform you choose to create and deliver your material on, I would definitely have a test classroom that you can see what the students see. A lot of platforms now do have a student view, what you can see, but also too, it just allows the teacher to better able to navigate the students through how to access the learning, because it's one thing to have all our curriculum ready and looks awesome and it's ready to go, but we make probably a big assumption that our kids are digital natives, and they're not. I would say that they're digital natives when it comes to all things social media, but when it comes to various online platforms, they can actually really, really struggle. Don't get me wrong, they pick it up really quick, but that comes back to how well the teacher can navigate them through that. So I would probably say get access to like a Screencast-O-Matic or Google Screencastify, so you can actually say get in a test classroom or get in a platform that has a student view and navigate, make a video navigating the kids through the different steps to actually access their learning. So that would be my biggest tip for starting off in that. But other one would probably be, if possible, become a team teacher in your online platform, because what happens then is teachers can bounce off each other, learn from each other. I never turn my notifications off, because that's kind of like when I'm on playground duty. So kids get very good at navigating the systems quite quickly, but sometimes they may not use it responsibly. So I never turn my notifications off in my email. A lot of times I can just delete, but I'm getting a snapshot really quick of who's doing what and how they're doing it. So I kind of liken my notifications to being on playground duty, even though my students aren't in a face-to-face context.
Do you do that too for all the ones that you're team teaching, so that it's not just you got all these classrooms that are all coming to you. I do know what that's like because I was doing that recently with my Google Classrooms, and I was the second teacher on every single classroom across my school, and it meant my email got filled up a lot. I was quite thankful when I went back through that you can actually now in Google Classroom just turn off your notifications
Yes.
by classroom, whereas it used to be you had to just turn off all the notifications at once, and that was a bit of a hindrance. So it's good. I think that's great. I think that's a good tip because it does give you good insight into what's actually happening in those classrooms when those
Yeah,
emails roll
a
in.
lot of teachers do turn them off, and I've got no issue with that because at the moment we've restructured our stage 4, starting with year 7. So I've just left all my notifications on for that, just so I can see. So sometimes our students aren't as responsible as we'd like them to be, and that just comes back to a whole being a good digital citizen. So depending on the year group that you're teaching, I would run them through how to be a good digital citizen as my first port of call before you would run any other curriculum areas. So you want to equip them with the skills and the knowledge to hopefully leave a good, positive digital footprint.
All right. So let's switch away from the tech. We'll come back to tech later, I think,
Okay.
and talk about how we actually go about setting ourselves up for success. So we talked about, testing that classroom, or maybe even making yourself a student in your own classroom using just a different email or something.
Mm-hmm.
Team teaching, working smarter and not harder. How do teachers go about making sure that they are not just massively overworked by this? How do they go about making sure that with this 2 weeks worth of work that they've got to prep, or once they actually have to maybe deliver something online, how do they make sure that they're not just suddenly swamped with an enormous amount of work?
Yeah, look at the platforms that are out there, and this can be really tricky because I know, say, in the department, year 11 and 12 have access to YouTube. So there's people that are creating really high quality YouTube materials in regards to delivering curriculum. But also, too, there's a platform called Quizlet where students and teachers can make up sets of cards for study tools. So there's amazing resources there. But once you go outside of the things that you're creating, that comes back to a quality control then. So I would definitely say, even though people will be swamped planning, definitely take the time to watch the videos, make sure they're hitting the dot points that you need, especially for your seniors, and just have a bit of quality control. And I know there's a lot of networks that have set up. There's an excellent primary resource Facebook site called, I think, On Butterfly Wings, and it's amazing for primary teachers. If they want to get on that Facebook, if they're not already, they'd be all over that. Lots of resources, really positive, supportive group. And for secondary, I know with the different KLAs, say with PDHPE, there's a CAFS wiki site, and lots of resources that exist out there. So just, hit up teachers in other schools, find out what they're doing, use connections, that type of thing, and find the work that already exists. But yeah, that comes back to a bit of quality control there as well.
Yeah. You spoke a bit there about stage 6 and stuff, and those kinds of resources. What about if you have to do this with little kids, like primary school kids? What kind of tips would you give to the primary school teacher if they're going to have primary kids at home doing distance learning? What do they need?
Just lots of organisation, and that's the thing about being a distance education teacher. The more organised you can be, the easier it is going to make your life as well. So what we do in our primary school, our primary are all on Google Classroom. So the kids all know that they're not alone and they're working as a class group. But they also send out a lot of packages because we go preschool all the way up to year 12, and that comes back to lots of hands-on activities, whether it's even your art or your reading and all that kind of stuff. So being organised, and I know lots of teachers have already got their scope and sequences, so they know what they're going to do, but now it's an actual thing of pulling all those resources together in, a pack for 30 kids in your class, and then being able to register it in the mail and send it off. And that's assuming that the mail's still going to be working in regards to the coronavirus. But in saying that, some of our kids and their locations, it takes a month for the work to get to them when we mail it to them. So, you have to be quite resourceful with that. But I just think distance education teachers, and to prepare for it as well, you have to have a good presence online. And it sounds a little bit ridiculous, but you always have to have know where your camera is when you're looking and talking to the kids. A lot of the time we get stuck in looking down and pressing buttons and finding stuff, but it doesn't make it a very good quality experience for the people watching. So it's really important. Sometimes, you might get cardboard cut out of eyeballs or a little Lego man and blue tack it to actually where the camera is to make sure you keep looking at the kids. So there's lots of little hints and tips to go with that as well.
Yep. Yeah, beautiful. And then obviously with little ones, if they're at home, not generally their parents are at home, how do you go about utilising parents with their learning?
Your parents have to be really active supervisors. So when you sign up to a distance school, there has to be an allocated supervisor. That could be a parent, or it could be a grandparent, or it could be a carer, whoever it is, but they need to be quite active in the supervision. So I would highly recommend getting a routine, whether it is primary or up to secondary, and having a really active interest in what the kids are doing, and making sure that the teachers usually send out excellent instructions on how to do it, whether that be via Google Classroom platform or actually in the package of work that gets sent out. But don't make the assumption that you can kind of relax as a supervisor when your kids get into high school. Yes, they're more independent, but also too, when they move on to, say, a more full-time digital platform, there's still activities that can be sent out in paper resources and activities, art books, science kits, all that kind of thing. But it's then a matter of really becoming an active supervisor, having them work in a public space. Don't have them working in a room or where you can't see them. At the end of the day, ask, look, can you show me the online work that you have completed? Because sometimes they'll just return it without doing any work in it. So as a parent supervisor, whether your little ones are doing their thing or you've got the older ones, just make it a big routine. Set it up like a school day type of thing, and have the little breaks in between to give you a break, but also the students as well.
Yes, I remember chatting to you about this before. You were talking about the importance of making sure that you have some kind of timetable essentially set up for your week, like you would kind of normally have at a school, I guess. But I guess with the distance or remote learning type situation, you want that to be still in place, and you still want to have your breaks, like you were saying. So in those breaks, do you disappear then, in the sense of
So
kids
that's it.
accessing?
That's a really good question. So originally our distance ed was set up that we have single course students which are at different schools. So we timetable them first because they have a timetable and they're locked in. And then we timetable our full-time students because they've got more flexibility. So this year in our stage 4, we have timetabled the students to have, rather that one-on-one lesson, we can have 10 students on Zoom, 10 students on satellite, and we're all teaching them, team teaching at the same time. So with that, the timetable has worked well. It's taken a little bit to get that structure and routine, but what we try and do is have like a face-to-face learning experience where we're challenging the kids' thinking. We're just not delivering the explicit material, but we're really challenging their thinking, pushing them to step outside the box with their thinking. And then after the hour's lesson, we then leave the work, that's the follow-up work for them to do type of thing. And then they might have recess. Then we have the next lesson for an hour block. So with our timetable, there is that teaching time and interaction time. Then they have the individual stuff that they do. But to fill up a week's worth of work, you've got to be really organised and know kind of who's doing what at what point in time, and to get that flow across effect as well with the kids.
Yeah, no, that sounds like really good advice there. It's obviously going to be slightly different too with your students are coming and need to get used to the idea of a more timetabled kind of system, whereas our students generally will be used to it, particularly if they're high school, they'll definitely be used to it. Primary school probably are used to it but don't know necessarily that that's what's going on. And so maybe just making sure that's more explicit in those online learning settings or in the paper that gets sent home to parents and stuff, to actually say this is the timetable for the week. So this is when we're doing maths, this is when we're going to do reading, or this is when we're going to do TAS or whatever it is that has to go on. That's good. Okay, so we've talked about how to set yourself up and how to get things going. So obviously making sure you have your curriculum, which we generally should have anyway, but then just slightly adapting that, making sure we're sticking to our timetables, making sure that we are well prepared, that we've actually had a look, if we're using tech, that we've had a look at how that works and showing our students what it looks like from the back end, and teaching them particularly about online behavior. And that's one of the reasons why we both love Google, is that it's really easy to see all the stuff that's going on online. And then the idea of team teaching, I think, is really good too, making sure that there's at least 2 teachers who have access to your class, but particularly because you can still get sick. You can still be at the point where you can't actually do online teaching. I know you have to be a lot more sick to to not be able to do that. But still, if you're in that situation, you want another teacher to be able to jump into your class and see everything that's been going on and be able to take over for you. So that's really good. And obviously using other people's resources as well as making your own. It's all fantastic, and I'm pretty sure, I have no doubt that a lot of the distance schools around our state at the moment are sharing a lot of their resources, as the DOE tends to do that and pull on what's available already before they create new stuff.